We went to the Smithsonian National Zoo. We got to see all kinds of interesting and exotic animals like pandas, baby bears, tigers, lions, elephants, and many more. My favorite parts were seeing the monkeys and orangutans climbing around in their enclosure and going into the good shop.
Live the museum of natural history. My favorite parts were the dinosaur bones and the gift shop.
The first day we went to the National Mall was on a Monday. We were going to another museum and we were passing through, so we stopped to take a picture. And we all thought it was going to be a real mall, but it was it's a grassy hill that is a motorway. On Tuesday, we went to the Holocaust Memorial Museum. The museum was very informative and made a lasting impression on all of us, showing the impact the Holocaust had on a wide variety of people. The most moving exhibit for me was a hospital door that was saved from flames and a huge tower of saved family photos. During our time in Washington, D.C., we went on a trolley tour. We saw multiple different monuments, including Lincoln Memorial, Martin Luther King Memorial, Arlington National Cemetery, and the Washington Monument. My favorite part was going to the Lincoln Memorial at nighttime. The size of the memorial made me realize Lincoln's impact on our country. This trolley tour overall was an unforgettable experience.
Our last day in DC, we took the metro to Arlington Cemetery and enjoyed a trolley ride there. Our class got to visit President John F. Kennedy's final resting place, marked by the eternal flame, and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, where we got to watch the changing of the garment. It was overall an amazing experience to be there and see all of these famous landmarks and memorials.
Going to the Asian Art Museum was a very interesting experience with lots of different styles of art than what I have usually seen. Even the building itself was a work of art. It covered many different styles and cultures.
There you have it. What would you guys like to maybe stand and introduce yourselves and stay standing and answer some questions, maybe? Put you on the spot. I love that.
So my name is Ben Press. I've been a student here ever since fourth grade.
My name is Josh. I've been here since seventh grade.
My name is Eva Pendleton, and I've been here since kindergarten. I'm Carmela Frazier, and I've been here since third grade.
If you guys have any advice for the seventh graders next year, what would you say to them? Like places to see or things to know?
Definitely, have the right mindset into every single, like place that you go to, because like having the right mindset and like having learning mindset and just like. Don't look at the stuff to look at the stuff, like
Yeah.
look for what value it has, because trust me, I have a lot of time.
That's very good advice. Have all of you been on planes before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, were there a couple people? That's a whole nother learning experience, is the big cities and the planes and all that stuff.
What was one thing that surprised you the most from the trip? That you didn't expect?
What it was. Yeah. Don't tell you guys.
Yeah, bring your walking shoe.
Yeah.
How was the food?
It was good.
Do you think there was too much squeezed into the trip or just enough or?
I mean, wasn't there, there were a couple things that we wanted to, but overall it was really holistic.
I had a blast traveling with him. It was my first time to DC. And I remember saying, for a little while, I forgot I was principal. And I don't know what I was. Because I felt like I might be their uncle, but truth be told, probably more like their grandfather. But it was really nice to be in that out of school and a setting like that with these guys. And Ben's mom, Kate, is here. She was a chaperone, and CJ, Eva's dad went along, and the three of us worked so seamlessly together to support the kids and to keep pushing. Last day, they did 14 miles. I tapped out at 10. They went out again. And so we put a lot of, wear your walking shoes.
Is there something that you think should definitely not be?
Definitely, the Monuments by Moonlight, that was my favorite.
Yeah, I think that last night was pretty cool too.
All right, yeah.
All of them are
Incredible South Bristol school tradition, really, really incredible. Everybody in this room and the community should be really proud of.
And another new, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask the ones whose parents went,
Yeah.
who enjoyed it?
I did.
Because I went with both of my girls.
It's history here.
Did they enjoy it?
They loved it.
You can go one on me because I don't think I want to go next year.
I tried to get Ava to let me go. Grandparents.
I can see the pictures now. So one town of South Bristol tradition that I think we're in the third, you guys will be in the third year of it, doesn't have anything to do with the school or the school board, is that the town votes every year to buy every eighth grader a MacBook Air. So you guys will be getting this summer a computer to take with you to whichever high school or certificate program you go to after South Bristol. So make sure you tell your parents they're not having to worry about like, oh, we need to buy a computer, because Katie's on it and you'll be getting them at some point in the summer, which is a really cool thing that the town does.
Actually, Mr. Armentrout came into the room
Oh,
and
good.
showed the kids what it would look like, and we have, as soon as the testing is done, I'll let them go.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, they're there, they're already.
they have a year, yeah, so they're gonna play with them a little, and
Yeah.
then they'll be able to use them and get to know them while they still have the expert here to answer questions.
Well, I was talking to my son the other day and he somehow overheard how much we budgeted for that. And he's like, really? Like, I haven't been treating mine that well. I did my kids for it, but still. Yeah.
$300 one, so.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, it's the town, it's the voters in the town, because they support the kids all the time. All right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you, guys.
Yeah, you guys can go.
Sorry, let me just take a second here. All these papers in order. All right, we have public here, maybe for a couple of different reasons. One of the first things that we want to talk about at our board meeting is some concerns around policy around book usage, and just kind of every once in a while we kind of periodically check the policies that we've put in place because they don't last forever. We implemented a sports policy that we kind of borrowed from Jefferson. We kind of fiddled with it this year and we realized that some of it still is probably not South Bristol enough. So we need to kind of look over it again. So one of the things that we'll do tonight is kind of look over our policy by JJ. We've talked about selection of books and all of that. So are there people in the audience that are here for public comment for that, or just to listen to that? Yep. Okay, Amanda. Okay. Amy. So the thing about school board meetings is public comment is just kind of saying what your concerns are and sharing those with us, and then we'll go on and have a board meeting. Sometimes we only have one person show up, so we have, against advice, been able to have a little bit more of a conversation, but we do have a pretty busy agenda, and I think that's this topic might be taken care of tonight, might be taken 2 meetings as well. I don't know. So would you like to start off, or do you want to?
Sure.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, congratulate and say thank you to the civil rights team that puts the books together.
Mhm.
I think that you did a wonderful job and I enjoyed the posts I follow. I think you guys are amazing. And I like to see some diversity. And I know people are concerned. I worked at a public school for 16 years. I'm well aware of the concerns. I also have some, but I think everything I read about the books that I saw, because I did get a look and looked them up, and they're recommended for pretty young kids. I also am quite certain that the librarian wouldn't check out a book for a child that was inappropriate. I know Amanda got asked by the librarian if it was okay if Camden, who was 6, take out a book on Hindenburg because of the violence. So I think whoever the librarian is it bad that I don't know who the librarian is? But I think diversity is extremely important. And we proud of you guys.
So mine's more of a personal statement than rather trying to convince anybody of anything, because I had a really proud mama moment the other day. I got a note from Lindsay that my daughter Lainey is going to be able to attend South Bristol next year as a middle school student. She's tuitioning in from Georgetown. And I have to tell you about her. She said once she toured South Bristol, she knew it was the place for her. She was greeted with kindness by her future classmates. She was invited to do things at recess. She was welcomed, and she was told at the end of the day that they really hoped that she was going to become a student of theirs or a peer of theirs. And unlike other middle schools where she went and toured, where people were throwing the R word around, the N word and the word fag, and teachers and other staff members and peers weren't doing anything about it, she didn't hear any of that here. And it really was important to my daughter that right from the get-go, that she was treated with respect and kindness. At South Bristol, we foster a spirit of compassion and inclusion. And the faculty here and the staff here cultivate a spirit of understanding. And though we may have our personal differences, every single person under this roof is kind. And we try to instill that in our kids. We don't categorize or marginalize. We've created a place where kids coming to school and feeling safe, that guests coming in, kids coming on tours, they all see that we have something pretty special here. And we offer our students enormous opportunities like this one. 3 years ago, a group of students approached me. In fact, I think Ben was one of them, and said that we should have a civil rights team here at our school. And I was part-time at the time. I made no commitment because being part-time in 2 schools was pretty rough. However, that fall I became full-time, and when I shared that good news with the kids, we started a civil rights team at the middle school level. And Holly and Kayla and I all got trained by the Attorney General's office to run the best civil rights team that we could. We brought our kids to the Holocaust and Human Rights Center in Augusta to learn to be advocates. We learned how to recognize bias, and we learned how to find our own voice. We did some welcoming material and did a day of welcome, both last year and this year. We developed a plan for the year, which included addressing the things we heard or said in the hallways of the bus when no one was looking. And we helped others develop an understanding that civil rights are here and we need to protect them. We worked collaboratively with TAM on many of occasions and the rest of the faculty to bring opportunities to our students as well as our faculty through some trainings from outside entities. And it was our group in the civil rights team that demanded that we have updated materials in our library. They wanted all of the old materials purged and new relevant materials that they could relate to added to our collections. This year, we sponsored our first buddy lunch, and we're actually going to have another one later this week. We celebrated our work we've done by going to a Sea Dogs game, where literally thousands of other civil rights team members were in the stands, and it was pretty overwhelming. It was very loud, but it was really wonderful to be around literally thousands of other kids who believe in the same things that we do. We believe in inclusion, and our kids on the civil rights team believe in inclusion of all of the civil rights. Our work has been recognized by other organizations. We had a trainer come in from the Cromwell Center, and Hazel and I subsequently got invited to speak at their annual fundraising dinner down in South Portland and talk about inclusive communities and how to create them in other schools. And I think our students are really testament to what we do around here. The fourth graders who are rising to be fifth graders can't wait to be on the civil rights team. I think we've done something right. The civil rights team is not pushing any particular agenda. Our goal is to teach kindness, promote respect for all people, and create a collaborative learning community that prepares our kids to be world leaders. Scientists, teachers, I could go on and on about what they could be, right? Because I can't imagine they're going to be everything. I think our motto, be kind, which is really cute, but ties in with our B program. It's so basic, but it's so very important. And if there's any agenda being pushed, it's that our students wish for adults and other kids surrounding them to learn the right way to be human. Thank you.
Well said.
As a teacher here and a parent, I want to make sure that my children are, they're in a K-8 school. So I know that there's books that are made for 8th graders and there's books that's made for kindergartners. And I was really happy this year to see that the K-4 kids have a very structured library time. And they are not allowed to take out books on any other day but that day, to the chagrin of my child, who is very upset that she only gets to take books out once a week. But the librarian is there with them and she's checking out the books. And that's when she came to me and she's like, do you mind if your son has the disaster of the Hindenburg? Or the history of the ships of Maine? And I'm like, oh, that means I have to read it. But so I know that she's very, it's very structured when they have library time for K-4. They're not just wandering and taking whatever books they want. They're checked out. It says, kids lose books and then you would never know where they are half the time. So I was able to see that for myself, and it was really nice that she helps them. And there is a section that is picture books for younger kids, and that's where they take their books out of. So because I know I've had kids in 5th grade that really want to read the Stephen King books that are out there, and I'm like, well, let's check with your parents and see if that's appropriate, because Stephen King can make you so you don't sleep at night. So and when you're scanning the Stephen King book, a big exclamation point will come up and say, should only be taken out by older kids. So there's definitely systems in place. And I know that our kids are really well taken care of, and everybody at the school just wants our kids to be safe and happy and take out things that are appropriate for them. Or if they're wondering or want to find something, that they're able to find that, and that they're able to also see themselves represented at the school. Because I know that's really important for our students to say, hey, maybe I want to see books here that represent me in the way I feel. And I think that's really important for our students, that they're have access to that, so.
Thank you. Are there other people that wanna? Toby, yes.
I'm not quite as positive with the display as my good friend Amy, but we'll still be friends. One of my questions is, who decides where to display books? And who monitors whether they get grabbed off a display? I'm not gonna make any bones about it. I'm a little concerned with the display. My main question is, who decides where these books get displayed? And who then, after that, Sarah, I'm gonna use the word protects the student from some books? And hopefully Amy and I will still be friends.
You're a great example right there, though. That's what we're all talking about, right? We don't always agree, but we're.
He's
sitting next to each
allowed to
other
have
and
his.
Probably breaks. So I wrote down your questions and I'll take those for when we discuss it. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Oh, just.
Yeah.
It's Sally what books get brought into.
All right, so I think I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yep. I have a
Voice
statement
your-
I'd like to
Your
read.
concern, yeah,
Yep.
and then we'll kind of, we
Yeah.
can spend a little bit of time talking about this and figuring out next steps.
Yep.
Um,
Everybody all done?
good.
Public hearing portion?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm Jim Reddy, I'm on board, obviously. And so I thought I'd put down in words, how I feel about things, and because I have a tendency to forget things. So I'll go ahead and just read this, and then we'll go from there. Good evening. We're all gathered here tonight with the common purpose of teaching and nurturing our children here at South Bristol Community. In the past several years in general, schools have strayed from being a place of learning, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and more about social engineering. This may have started out with good intentions, but has transformed into a movement that threatens our children's future and safety. What has brought this issue to a head has been the introduction of inappropriate, unsupervised reading material for our children. In February of 2022, transgender books started appearing in the library at the March 22 school board meeting. This concern was brought before the school administration. The board was told that the books were given to the school free of charge from Out Maine. The board was told that the books would be kept in the guidance counselor's office to be used on an as-needed basis and occasionally brought out if there's a need. Fast forward to May 2023, it was noticed that the display in the media center was adorned with trans and gender identity books for very young children, ages 3 to 12 and older. The board's job is not to be the book police, but the disregard for a prior agreement was obviously not followed through. As a board member and a grandfather, I could not, in good conscience, allow the teaching and promoting of our young, vulnerable minds about transgenderism and gender identity. Another troubling revelation that has come to light is not only are there books targeting kindergartners, but also Out Maine has been coming into the school to teach our children about transgenderism. So with that being said, I feel tonight we should start a discussion about policy regarding these concerning issues. We can all agree that we all want what's best for our children. And if a child is struggling with gender dysphoria, we want that student to have the resources needed to help them through their crisis. However, It is unspeakably evil to plant the seeds of gender dysphoria in the lives of young innocent children. Thank you for listening to me, and it's just very concerning with what I see going on, and I think there needs to be some discussion about it with the board. Come up with some policies and out input from the public. But, you know, I think just kind of going through it nilly-willy and hoping for the best is not gonna work, because our kids are too important. So,
All right, so I think there are a couple of answers to some questions. Jeff, do you want to talk about the library, how that works, or do you?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'll start, I wrote down questions, who decided where that display went. I was asked last year by the civil rights team if they could put it there, and I approved. And who monitors it? The civil rights team does, and the librarian does. I put a great deal of faith in their, and confidence in them, and everybody in the building monitors everything that happens in that room. It's also video camera pretty solid. I don't know for sure, because I didn't have time today to see if any of those actual books are checked out, but I don't believe any of them have been checked out. The ones on display are kind of seen as display. It's not to say that somebody hasn't checked it out, but I don't believe so. Who decides what books? Again, that's through the civil rights, through our librarian who's studying a master's degree right now in library sciences and will be certified. She's going by Surgeon General's list of approved books in this topic. And as far as Out Main coming, they do come. They come to do correct me, Deb, if I'm wrong, they do an hour presentation with 8th graders, and they do a half-hour survey with 8th graders.
Half-hour presentation.
Half-hour presentation. And I sat in on the survey, as did 2 other adults in the building, because some of this was percolating a while back and it was benign, and I was perfectly comfortable with it. So I hope that answers your questions. I'm happy to entertain any others.
And I'll add a little bit to that, the ALS also employs a library specialist who oversees all of the schools. So we have that layer in addition to our librarian, who, as Chuck said, is being trained as we speak. And then I think that one of the things that has come up in this conversation, which is not a surprise, is that, you know, we're a pre-K through 8 school. So things that are appropriate for these guys aren't necessarily appropriate for the pre-K kindergarten classroom. And as it stands now, the library is kind of split up into 3 different levels, elementary and middle, but the display isn't, you know. So that could be potentially something that we talk about, because it is, when you walk in, it's there. So whether it doesn't have to be gender issues, it can be anything. And you might have veterans books that are not appropriate for little guys that the other half of the floor are going to be interested in. So I think there can be some discussion about that, which would potentially alleviate some of the issues of who's exposed to what. There's another thing I was going to say. Oh, we received a donation from Out Main last year, as Jim said. We have more books than what Out Main gave us. So we about 6 out of the 13 books there were from that donation last year. Other books are books that we either have in the library or ordered. So I think that saying that this is a problem that we can pinpoint Out Main as the source is not accurate anymore. And I said this last year too, but Out Main really has helped. And if Scott were here, I think he would, and I think some of the other teachers can probably back me up, that we have needed their services to help take care of some of our kids in the past. So I think, like with the books, it's balancing the ages and the situations that we have, because just like all the community members, we know our kids. So it's hard with policy, because sometimes we slip in little out clauses that cover us when we have a certain situation come up, but it also can not serve us if the policy isn't being followed as we intended it to be. So I think that, I'd like to put a first read of the policy in August. And then I don't know if there's other suggestions about how we go forward for this process, because we all need to figure out like how as a board, we want to get information, if there's more information after tonight, get community feedback. We can see what others will do. I heard that Noblesboro has like a young adult book room. We can't necessarily do that here, because we don't have the space, but they get, there are a couple of different levels of who can look at certain books in the school. I'm not saying that that's what we should do, but like there probably are ideas floating around this community, either in our schools or from people that are knowledgeable about this in our area on both sides. So do you guys have any thoughts about how to go ahead, or just?
I'm wondering if somebody can speak more to the checkout process and the safeguards. that
Yeah.
are Currently in place, now that we have the audience.
Right, and I think that maybe, I mean, because I think one of the reasons that this was kind of hastily put together tonight, and that's, I also kind of, I don't know if I guess we are broadcasting everywhere, like, part of the problem with tonight and the short time frame is that, you know, a couple of people heard about what was going on, and a couple of people were able to come, but that doesn't do the community justice, because we weren't able in a day to get word out. We weren't even able to put it on our agenda. So there are lots, potentially people in our community that weren't able to have the opportunity to come tonight. So we can provide that opportunity in August. It's August, so we might be able to get Wilbur to come then, but we can certainly, even if she can't, maybe that's a September thing, or we can at least get the information that we need for questions like that, so that we can have a little bit better of an idea of, like, I hadn't even thought that, you know, yeah, they're really monitored when they're there. So it's not just grabbing the book. I mean, not to say that somebody doesn't grab a book every once in a while, but so maybe as a board, we can circulate questions, and if there are questions from the community, you can email any of us, and we can keep going from there. Does that sound comfortable?
It's comfortable, yeah.
And we'll bring Christian up to speed.
Yeah, as far as where the books came from. I don't think it's very appropriate to have a book in the library about for kindergartners, explaining to them about gender identity and transgenderism. It's just not right. I mean, why are those books in the library?
Well, we've had transgender kindergartners in the district. So we have.
Kindergartner here.
Yep. So it's,
So you expose the whole school to transgenderism because of one student? I would think it would make more sense to take care of that one student one-on-one.
So since this is public comment, really, we should follow the procedure of making a comment and making sure everybody has a chance to comment, but then moving on to the business that we have to do tonight.
this is maybe more for discussion right now, but I think that if we can get as many voices as we can, writing down questions and offering voices.
Yep.
And maybe you can help me take care of the next steps.
Right.
And we can figure out how to do that. Does that work?
Sure.
You good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Is there any public comment? Can I just make one more thing, or that?
You can email it to us and we'll make sure that the voice is heard. Okay.
I haven't spoken.
No,
I'm sorry, I
this
was
is
at
public
another
comment.
meeting. I was at another meeting.
All right.
Just first, what is the policy that you're
Right,
looking
so we're looking at
at?
IJJ, and that's something that I should have mentioned. It talks about how it defines resources, it talks about criteria for selection, procedures for selection, donated materials, parental authority, and there's a procedure that if you do have a book of any kind that you are concerned with, there's a procedure that you have to go through that involves staff and parents and the superintendent's office to get this sorted. So if we have a policy section on our website. It's not filled with policy, but if we can get this one there.
It's on there.
It is on there. Okay, so it's IJJ, and I am going to close this discussion now. But I will include, no, okay, so I would encourage people to email us, okay? So,
I just, as a board member, I haven't had time to read the policy. And I think
That's
if,
what I was going to speak to. Is that
Right,
this
I can't-
process that the board have in their policy has not been followed in this instance. These books should have been brought to the librarian and said, we don't like them instead of it coming to the
Okay.
board.
but we have.
but I think everybody, we need to take a strategic pause, and everybody who wants to have an opinion about this topic probably needs to do their homework first.
But we need to follow the policies we have.
Right.
In effect now, which is not happening at this meeting.
Well, I think-
That's all I'm gonna say.
I
Okay.
think that part of it is, I mean, I feel the weight of this decision in no small part because I have two young people here who are probably members of the civil rights team. And there's a whole bunch of other people that are watching, and it's one thing to say, we're not gonna talk about this because we're not following policy. It's another thing to show that we can have civil discourse about an argument, about, not an argument, about a topic that there are many sides to. And so tabling it till August, have we sneak, it's not on the agenda, so we made an agenda adjustment, we did that. And one of the things that I was gonna say to you guys is the frustrating thing sometimes about school board that I think we all feel is we don't move quickly. So there are policies and sometimes they're spot on and sometimes I'm like, why didn't I think of that 2 years ago when we made the policy? So it's an evolving thing, but I think it's important to be able to have this discussion and to show the community and the kids that this is a hard issue for adults. It's probably simpler for you guys in some ways. So we're working on it. And we'll have some more things in place in September when, well, not you guys, but when other kids come back to school and you'll have to, yeah. Yes, Ben.
I mean, and like, I understand the issue here, but like, we don't have to go like fast right now because there are like, what, 2 weeks left
Yeah.
of school?
Mhm.
So I don't really think it is, like, I think that we should just take this slowly and
Mhm.
think of a more like strategic way to combat this issue, listen to both sides, get more members of the community in here, and I think that would really help.
Right, and I'll be honest, we were talking about this last year, we're talking about it now. I'd rather not talk about it next time, because I'd like to know that we have our ducks in a row and that it's not a yearly event, it's just it might be yearly tweaking things, but it's not a yearly big discussion every year. So thank you. Okay, where are we?
Secretary report.
Yeah, no, I know, I'm just trying to think if we're want to move anything else around, but all right, Secretary's report, approval of the minutes from the May 2nd, 2023 regular meeting of the South Bristol School Board. I'll make a motion. Do I have a second? Anybody have anything?
Which one is the second?
Pick one.
Sandy?
Sorry, Sandy. Was there any discussion about the minutes? All those in favor? All right, that's 4 in favor, 1 absent. Chair's report, the next regular meeting of the South Bristol School Board will be Tuesday, August 1st, 2023 at 5:30 at South Bristol School. Thankfully, we are not meeting on July 4th. The next morning meeting of the ALS Board will be on Tuesday, June 13th at 6 p.m. and this will be in person at Jefferson Village School. Do you have anything to report from?
I
the
certainly
meeting?
do.
Okay.
So the AOS meeting was on May 9th. Did the usual roll call and agenda. Minutes and such, chair's report, and then we went over Lindsay's evaluation. And that went very well. And then we voted unanimously to authorize joint representation for looking into the strategic vision for AOS 93. And then we went into executive session and I'm sworn to secrecy.
So while I do think there are people here to hear Tara's presentation on the math pilot program, I would like permission to move that to now.
Yeah.
That work?
Yeah.
Chuck, okay? Sarah? Okay.
It's
I can
difficult
do-
because I'm the
yeah.
owl and I'm the note taker
Oh, yes.
and I'm the presenter. So I'm just
May
trying to
help
think how to
somebody.
do this.
That can work?
I just can take second.
No, you take. And after this, people are like, oh,
My husband.
usually I don't know.
That's okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put the presentation on my computer and replace it up here so that everybody can see what I'm looking at and it'll work. Just need a second. What room is this? Is this 8th grade or 7th grade?
It should say styles from 27.
Ah, there it is. Thank you.
Jordan, see that? I put on deodorant. I don't know if it works. I think it's
How long is
natural
it?
stuff. That's all I can buy.
I think it's from this.
Okay. That's okay. We're flexible. We're good at this. Yeah, no trouble. Okay, so we're going to talk about the pilot, the long-time pilot that South Bristol has had for iReady and Ready Classroom. So when you originally started piloting iReady and Ready Classroom, these were the review process outcomes. We wanted a math program aligned with the main learning results. We wanted it to incorporate best practices. We wanted it aligned so that when kids moved from grade to grade, they were building on past instruction. And of course, you wanted high student achievement and growth. And this link here that's in the PDF that you got is to the Ed reports. And as you can see, the Ed reports are still really nice and green. These meets expectations here down below are, this is for the product that you're using for math instruction right now.
Ed reports is.
Sure, Ed reports is an independent review. Super qualified professionals with curriculum degrees far beyond anything we have here. And their whole job is to review curriculums and put an independent reviews out there so that people can choose programs. And so you can see these are updated. The Ready Math one is 2018, the other one's 2020, and then they actually did iReady again in 2021, which is kind of remarkable, I guess. So those are up to date. So each of the math teachers were offered a survey and you saw the survey results. I'm not going to go over the results that they filled out, but they had a chance to meet and see each other's results and the comments that they wrote and have a conversation about them at the last PD day that was May 26th, I think. So one of the questions that was in the original review before the pilot for iReady Ready Math was the rigor of the mathematical practices. So South Bristol School gave it an 8. The AOS, that's all the middle school teachers that use iReady and Ready Math in the AOS, gave it an 8.2. How would you rate the focus and coherence? Again, that was in your original review when you selected the program. South Bristol School gave it a 7. The AOS gave it a 6.3. And the usability, the South Bristol School gave it a 7 and the AOS gave it 6.2. And those are the same categories that you'll see if you look back on the Ed reports and you open up the box and see each of the criteria that they used to review. So you can look at those 3 criteria or you can select other criteria to decide.
This is irrelevant, but how many teachers in the entire AOS made up those numbers? How many?
It was only teachers that use Ready Math and iReady. So Nobleboro doesn't use that program, so not them. There were, I think, 4 at Great Salt Bay. who are using it now. 2 from Jefferson and an interventionist who uses the program. And 5 people were given the survey here, 4 people filled it out. Oh, no, I forgot Bristol. And Bristol had 2 people who filled it out. There are just 2 middle school teachers there. And, okay, yeah.
And iReady is the online portion and Ready Classroom is the books and hard copy? Is that
Yeah,
right?
so iReady is the diagnostic. It can be given in the fall, the winter, and the spring, or you can do it as often as you'd like. I wouldn't want to do it more often than the 3 times because it takes time away from instruction, to be honest. But it is really accurate and pinpoints the students. And that feedback was really clear from the majority of teachers that are using it. And it offers students an individual digital program that meets their needs. So that's the iReady piece. Ready Classroom is the more traditional workbooks and lessons. And there's a framework that orders those so that those can build. We're good? Okay, yeah. You
guys talk
got to
about
stop
things
me
all the time,
because,
but we don't
yeah,
always
yes. It's very helpful when you let me know that's education speak, put it in English. So that's okay. So what are we going to do now? So really the big thing I want to do is move away from which curriculum we're using and talk about math and math instruction. And lucky for us, I think we have found some good math strategists who feel the same, who don't want to spend time trying to sell us a program, but help us become good math instructors. So one of the first things that I'd like to do is take a look back at our priority standards. So you have priority standards that were selected a while ago before the main learning results were updated, which happened recently. So this link here, oh, nope, this link here didn't take you there. Let's see if I can go there. This is a shared folder that all the teachers have access to. And what I did, I'll just pick 4th grade, why not? So if you look in this first column, the one on the left, it says old codes and parent-friendly language. These are the things that are assessed for the report cards and reported out on the report cards right here. And this coding that they have over here, I'm trying to show you my little wiggly thing right there. Those are the older codes. Those were the codes from the main learning results before it was updated. So what we have over here in the right column is the current codes and the current main learning result language. And one of the interesting things you notice when you take it down to this level is there's actually strands. There's 4 of them. The first one's quantitative reasoning. That's the blue. I color coded it as all good educators do. The next strand is algebraic reasoning. That's the green one. I'm spinning down to find a purple here. Then there's measurement and data. And then the red is geometric reasoning, geometry. So those are the strands. And then the standard is the next bit here. And this coding right here, at least on the math for main learning results, that's actually from the Common Core. That's the most updated version. Then you get down to the performance expectations. That's really a description of that standard and usually drills a little bit further down. What you find if you look at our priority standard languages, they're not standards, they're performance expectations. So the first thing I think that we need to do is correct that language. And then so I put them all with what our priorities are. And then at the bottom, these are ones that aren't a match. These weren't selected as priority standards, which means we're not reporting on them right now to parents. Of course, we assess them, but they're not being reported. So what we're going to do in the fall is teachers are going to have a chance to take a look at these and decide, are the ones at the bottom really not priorities still? Or maybe some of them are now. Are the ones that we still have as priorities our priorities? And what are we going to call these? Are we going to call them performance expectations if that's what we're reporting? So that work needs to happen next. And that's just good reporting practice. Then the next thing was one of the questions that was in the survey was, how is it aligned with the current standards, the iReady program? And honestly, I searched through the iReady and Ready Classroom, because I have a dashboard too, where I can look and see how students are doing, how classes are doing, and how schools are doing. And so I went in there and looked all over trying to find what was the easiest way to then match up how are these actually correlated to the instructional materials that we're using. And I couldn't find it, to be honest. I looked everywhere. So I called our math strategist and just said, they've got me on speed dial now, I guess. And they said, here's where to go, and described it. And so it was wonderful. They have these lovely documents that you can pull up. I'll just pick a grade. I don't know what grade I picked. Doesn't really matter. Oh, first grade. So they actually have them. So this right here is the standard of major focus. And then it's actually coded to the Common Core here. And this tells you exactly which lessons they're in. So unit by unit and grade by grade, we can align those. So that's work I want the teachers to get some time to look at and in the fall, so that what we're reporting is very well aligned to the instruction. So that comes next. Then another thing that I learned talking to iReady and each of the schools that use it is that the teachers find they prefer different remedial practice that's a little more traditional. And a lot of them, when you say, so what are you using? When you get to a student who finds this rigorous lesson too difficult, what do? And each of them has a different way of doing it. Some of them pull out a file folder, some of them pull out a shared folder that's a drive, but they've all come up with resources that they use. And so one of the things I heard about was fluency. We need more fluency. And so this was shared with me. This is someone's fluency work that's all digital that really could be shared. This is 6th grade fluency work. So that's another thing I'd like to do in the fall for any of the iReady Ready Classroom teachers. I want them to pool those resources. So we will have a drive where teachers could go and then go drill down to the grade level, and then the unit, and then the topic, and they would have the supporting materials at their fingertips too, so that if somebody needs additional practice, they have it. Because that's what good teachers do. When there's no program that's perfect, and when a program doesn't have what you need, what you do is get what you need and get it to the kid. That's what teachers do. So I want us to empower teachers to do that. So that's that. The other thing that I would like to work on next, it's a little rigorous for all 1 year, I know, but that's okay, is the Math Pact. So this is something that the DOE did last year with groups across Maine. You had to get a group of, I think, 4 and an administrator to participate. And they sent you this book called the Math Pact, Achieving Instructional Coherence Within and Across Grades. And basically you vertically align. You take a look at the vocabulary you're using and think about, why is one class calling it one thing and another class calling it another? And isn't that confusing for kids? And so I brought you a little sample of that. I don't know if you can read it from here, but these are various problem-solving posters that were found in one school. So these are the steps for solving a word problem. So in one class, they called it, you have to remember super. Slowly read the story problem twice, underline the questions, picture the problem, explain, rewrite the answer. Okay, so that's the one. Then they went to the next class and the teacher said, no, you're going to use sweep. You're going to look for symbols, choose the words and labels, look at the equations, explain, and draw some pictures and diagrams. So you can see it's a little inconsistent. And we do that. We do that. This is common practice that every teacher sort of has their own poster for how to solve word problems. And it's just an opportunity for teachers to talk, agree, and maybe there's a K2 version, a 3.5 version, and a middle school version, and the teachers know what the versions are, so that when you're that 3rd grade teacher and they've been taught sweep for 3 years, you can say, actually, now you've grown up and you are ready for cubes. and you move on to the next type of problem solving. So that is what the math pack does. You take a look at how you notate things, what you're saying about math, what you're calling things, the representations you're using, and you make that all more concise for kids. So that's another bit of PD that we're going to look forward to next. And then the next one's how can we monitor? Well, teachers observe our principals observe our teachers. And we have a data wall now that's keeping track of our data. I did check because you had asked me recently if we have iReady data from the previous year. We do have it because the teachers here were very savvy in putting it on their own data wall last year, which was very wise because we did not set windows last year. And so that data is no longer available on our dashboard. But South Bristol School had their own assessment wall, and the scores from fall, winter, and spring are there for last year. So you already have 2 years of data on iReady, which is great. So that's good. And continue to make adjustments and continue to listen to our teachers and use their feedback. So key takeaways are we need to give our teachers instructional materials that get good reviews, and we need to continue sustained professional development. We also need to give our teachers the ability to choose when they need to supplement, when they need remedial instructional materials, and time for them to work with their peers across the AOS. So the last thing I wanted to say is I really want the focus on future professional development to be on high quality math instruction, not a particular program. So that is my presentation today. And I'm recording. You can ask questions.
When the staff has like professional development days, is that like, is this what they do, some of this stuff?
Yeah, some of this stuff is what we will do. This year, well, I kind of bit off a lot. This year we worked a bit on math, we worked a bit on reading, and we worked a bit on writing. Those were the big topic areas. My first year here, I thought start with the basics.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. Well, we actually did a bit of social studies too.
So do you do that gauged on what you feel the staff needs for
Yeah.
help or, yeah?
Yep.
Yep.
And then each of those days, when we're finished with the day, I give a survey for exit tickets, essentially. And they get a chance to tell me what worked, what didn't, what they like, what they want next. And then there's a committee, that's the curriculum planning committee, that has representatives from each school, and they meet with me. And we take a look at what are the trends in the exit surveys, what are they telling us about what teachers need next, and then we make choices and try and meet those needs. That's how we came up with the writing one. It was like 66% of comments in one survey were, why haven't you had a writing PD day? Why isn't there writing? What happened to what we were doing with writing? This needs to come back. And so we brought that back for March. Yeah, that's how those get decided. Yeah.
So as a board, I know that different math programs have been in front of me before, and they've been in South Bristol. We've had quite a few over the last 7 or 8 years. This is a little bit broadening the topic, but I'm curious about why we always seem to be brought with math curriculums, but we don't seem to be having to go on science or social studies or English curricula in any way. It's a little bit of an uncomfortable decision for us to be in, because we're electricians and planners, and I'm a preschool teacher, but you know, that's a different kind of math and all sorts of expertise over here. So I don't know. I'm just curious. It seems a little strange that we're usually only running for one.
Well, it's actually pretty typical of schools, to be honest. I think math's just such a concrete, linear topic that usually it's taught in a textbook with a program and a curriculum. Whereas reading, I think, like balanced literacy has really changed what a reading classroom looks like and what reading instructional materials are needed. And you do have a writing curriculum that is voted on. That happened in 2016. That was units of study, which is why I got all those exit tickets and why we did that in March.
2023, yeah.
I know, yeah, it's a
So-
long time. Can you imagine how many turnovers there were of staff between the time that that was voted on and the accepted curriculum?
All the
And
things.
that's why people said, like, why haven't we revisited this? So we did.
And. Oh, what's going on in my head these days? Sorry. Okay, I know, actually, we've been talking, I've heard a lot of talk about math curriculum being consistent among grades and also among schools. And we're talking about how textbooks are more seen in math than in other ways. So how do we get if continuity across the schools is important to the AOS, how does that translate if English and social studies are not as specific curriculum based? Just the standards? Is that, I mean, the standards guide what you do?
Well, I think it's beneficial to the AOS whenever we have a common, when we're using common materials, that is true. But in this particular case, I didn't ask for an AOS decision. I felt really strongly that each of the schools had to choose what they needed. And so each of the surveys, I did an AOS one, then I sorted it into the 5 schools and looked at each of the data and made those slide presentations. And then I went to each of the schools for the K4 group. And then I met with the middle school group in each of the schools and showed them each other's comments. And it's just, you are an AOS and you have been for a while, and that makes work like this need to be done a different way, at least until we change. And it was great. Like every meeting, those slides are nearly identical. Those shows, the slide shows school by school, but the conversations and the way it's processed at every school is totally different. It's interesting, really similar responses in a really different way. So in a dream world, I'd love to see a situation where they're finally all in the same room. I think collectively there's so much knowledge and experience and understanding that it would be huge. So that, that's the goal eventually.
I think one piece of the discussion that I was hoping to have, which now we learned that we can have, is data over the last 2 years of our pilot. And we piloted for 3 years, but we now have data for 3 points of 2 years. It's hard for me to think about this decision without some more data. But I'm wondering where you guys land on your comfort level with the material that we were given before the meeting and with what's presented here. One of the choices that we do have is Sarah did a math workshop with Jefferson in the fall. So that would be potentially one of a couple of different ways, along with just getting data presented to us, that we could gather more information if you feel like you need more information.
Actually, what I did for Jefferson in the fall was their question was, how do you go from main learning results to lessons?
Okay.
And so it was really a conversation about that process, how you take standards and work that we didn't go over.
That our process could be about.
Yep, you could
gathering
pick
more
anything.
information for this process.
You could pick any topic and I would do that.
My
Yep.
only question is, if you still intend to do public comment regarding the curriculum? And if
I know, I
anybody
was thinking
here
that too.
has
I have
any
said that I would, so I think I
comment
should open it up to that.
about the curriculum.
Is that okay? I had said at the beginning of the meeting that we were
Yes.
start with that. I thought we would say doing it first because I felt like we should have the presentation before the comments. So we'll just have comments. With that,
So are you going to make it mandatory for all K through 8th and AOS, or just each school district, the iReady program?
The iReady is the diagnostic piece and the individual digital lessons. And yes, if they choose to continue with that.
Is that, I'm sorry, is
then
the
we would
AOS
still
choosing
do,
or is just South Bristol choosing?
you're just choosing for your school.
Okay, awesome.
Yep. And then if you chose to do that, then that would actually be very beneficial to continue the diagnostic. You have 2 years. And if you keep going for at least another couple of years, then you'll have beat the DOE, who has switched the NUIA so many times that it's difficult to look at data over time. I know I said that on record. But like you have something very valuable in that you have last year's data, you've got this year's data. And if you stay with the same diagnostic, you're going to have data over time that's really going to help you make this decision. And you can bring this back next year. You could decide, yeah, we're going to stick with this, and then we're going to look at it again next year. You don't have to wait 5 years to review it again. So yes, I am recommending that we stick with that. But for the Ready Classroom, I don't know if you've looked at the workbooks, but they're pretty overwhelming. And what I have seen in looking at our data is that what we're doing is working. And so I said to the teachers that I really trust them. I want everybody to use the framework. I want that framework to be consistent. That's one of the things that one of our tier 3 goals was to reduce inconsistencies K to 8. So we would make sure that that language supports students as they're going from grade to grade, but also make sure to go on record in saying that we support our teachers supplementing the program when they feel like that's the right thing to do. So that is what I'm recommending.
Yeah, because I've substituted for all different teachers in this school. And I think only one teacher I've known or that I've substituted for at least during math has had the actual book out, and I've had to follow a lesson, and that's fine because I've done it before. But a lot of the other teachers I've seen or I've substituted for, they definitely have their own implemented, just because we teach such a vast, it's so like, I mean, it's almost like every kid has an individual plan, which is great. And all the teachers do an amazing job with that in every single grade level here. So I think it's so important, mostly in this school, to give those teachers that extra, whatever they need to really push those each and every single one of the kids a little farther, or really kind of stretch them a little bit and not just follow a book. Because I taught at so many other schools that just followed a book, and then we'd follow a book for 3 years. And then they're like, oh, we don't like that book. We're going to do another book. And you're like, are you kidding me? And I just feel like it's not just this school district. It's just in general. And that's a lot for these little minds to be changing vocab. And but I feel like if they have the base with great teachers and the math teachers who know what they're doing, and then we help those math teachers and support them in the best way possible. I think that's really important for at least this school system, because I think we've got amazing teachers and great kids and a great board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Good.
Yeah, I mean, I have been here helping, actually, I was teaching math for many years. And we've been through, as you say, math curriculums every how many years compared to any other curriculum. The things I've seen, we have to think about right now with South Bristol is that when we took those surveys 2 years ago, we had one math teacher for 5 through 8. We now have 2 who have very different, I've worked with both of them, very different ways of teaching, which is
So
wonderful.
we need to make sure public comments don't talk about personnel. Sorry.
So here's the thing,
So-
I just learned this today.
Can't even.
So I just learned this today, there was a ruling last month that said that you're not allowed to talk negatively about anybody, which is totally makes sense. So you're not allowed to talk negatively about people, you're also not allowed to talk positively about people.
Okay.
Which is
Absolutely good.
Don't talk about people.
And it's really hard in the school, because if we talk about the English teacher, middle school English teacher, you're still singling somebody out. So it makes it sorry, I almost forgot it was you. You know, so like that is a burden for a lot of places. It makes it impossible at this place. So thank you for the reminder, because I did all
Yep,
know that.
yep. I know, it
One
gets
math,
comfortable and then we
one
just need to make sure we're being,
Yeah, yeah.
It's a board meeting.
Right. Also gone through how many different programs. The beginning of this year, working with my special ed kids in the Ready Math book. I mean, Lynn will probably attest to this, even with non-special ed kid, how stressful that book was to them. We had students leaving the classroom, crying, not wanting to do work, having no confidence. They now, with the extra help they are getting by the teachers having to do other work besides this program that we're spending lots of money for. And they are shining. Those students who wouldn't do math homework are doing it, and they're answering questions in class, and they're feeling good about themselves. So I just have a question is, why can't we just let our teachers do what they do without giving them this framework that we're spending lots of money for? The Common Core tells us what we need to teach, and let them teach it the way they want to, because not every school in the ALS is doing this. Last night, Jefferson said, we're going to pilot some other programs next year. We just heard Noblesboro doesn't use this. So why do we have to when it was not helping our students? It was very sad to see. And if we have to use it to any more extent than we do, I think we'll have to take our special ed kids out of the regular ed classroom, which at this grade, they do not like. For them to be able to be with their peers and do what their peers are doing is very, very important. And I don't see that happening with the Ready Math book itself. I know Sarah has seen it come home. I'm assuming, did it ever come home? Okay. Those math books. And
There's one saving, right? You can-
There wasn't a sign.
Yes, yes, sorry. Oh, that maybe, especially since you have, new board members that haven't seen this program, that you look at it.
Yeah.
And look at what it is before you make any decisions and think about our students. That's.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who has comments?
And again, we can use
Keep it
it, but
short,
as a
keep it short.
tool, like there's so many tools in our toolbox.
Mhm.
So we can use it as a tool, but then just add layers. Yeah.
I feel like I should because it happens in my classroom. And I'm really tiptoeing because I love teaching math and I think our kids have just done so well and I don't want to lose any of them. But I hear exactly what I saw, what Terry was talking about. It's such a rigorous book. It's fantastic. It's an amazing program. We're just set up differently. I've never, in 20 years, I've never had a classroom where every single student, no matter their level, is in the same room. It's phenomenal. It's beautiful. I've never seen such a thing. And so it means it's important to teach to the bottom and bring them all to the top. And I think, in talking to the other math teachers, we can do that very well. It's really hard to help people who struggle with read open a book that is so rigorous. And I think it's a great program. I love my kids more than I love curriculum. I think that's it. That's the most important thing to me, that my kids are crying.
Yeah. Thank you.
James been taken in vain a couple of times.
How are you guys doing?
Terrified.
I'm glad I'm not in school.
I mean, are you feeling like you could make use of another week or two to ask some questions and look at some of this? Or are you feeling prepared to vote tonight?
let me ask Tara this.
Mhm.
Let's say the board doesn't approve of Ready. Where does that take us?
That's a great question.
Other than breaking your heart?
It's not my heart you're breaking. To be honest, I think that sets back your tier 3 team a bit.
Yeah, so those are the things I wanna know. I mean, what are the
They've got
consequences? Tara?
goals that, and you know, math is one of the things that we are identified for, and having a program that it is curriculum and does have a framework to avoid there being gaps and gulfs and different language for students. That's why you choose whatever you choose to be the base. I don't think we're asking teachers to be on the same page at the same time or to make students cry. I think we're making sure that they're not missing important content and that we're trusting the teachers with this recommendation to find the right level within that content so that every student is reaching their potential. I think that's what curriculum's for. It's a tool, it's not the teacher. The teacher is supposed to use that tool and make choices within it. And you want it to be rigorous, and you want a teacher to take them where they are and get them as far as they can be, wherever that is. So I do think that would set your tier 3 program back on a bit. And you'd be at choosing a different program. And any program you're going to choose is going to be rigorous. All of them are going to be language based. If you're going to find one that meets expectations on ed reports, it's going to be different, but it's going to be a lot the same too. And what's going to make it hop off the page are the professionals that you hire. That's how curriculum works. It's a toolbox. And if you can learn how to use the toolbox, you can teach a kid with it. So that's what it's for. So you'd be at trying to find a new toolbox for your teachers. And you are in June, so I'm not quite sure what you would do by September. That would be a trick to come up with something different by then.
So, new school board member.
Yep.
Your recommendation, your leaning is towards already.
I really would recommend the iReady diagnostic. Yes,
The diagnostic.
very much so. Yeah,
the-
you've got a rare thing here in that you've got 2 years of data. I'd hate to see you lose that.
But
That's
the
got great
consensus on the
potential.
material is that those books are tough to teach from.
They are, but I really feel like if you take a look at that data you've got from the last 2 years and how your students are looking with what this toolbox offered, I think you might want to keep it.
And then to make an analogy, you're also kind of saying that the ready books are more like a scaffolding, but we can fill it in.
Yeah, it's a base and you use that and veer from it. That's what instruction is. That's what teaching is. That's why people call it an art. It's not turning the page. Well, it was a long time ago.
So
It's not that anymore.
You're not prescriptive. You're not saying you guys got to do it this way.
Yeah.
I do not trust in my staff and give them a great deal of autonomy.
So even though the material is benchmarked pretty high, I'm kind of getting that you guys are tailoring the instruction that you're doing to the individual student, and we have that luxury because we are a small school. And because we do have good relationships with our students.
You are. You also have, 5 math teachers and 3, the rest of the math teachers that took the survey would like to use this program. So by not voting for it, you're telling all of them, start over, come up with a new program. So that I think that would be nerve-wracking in June to be told now the program that you just said you'd like to continue with, you're not going to be doing in September. So, that's part of this responsibility as well.
So I think I'd like to put a motion on the table. I would like to make a motion that South Bristol School continue with the iReady diagnostic tool. And that we table the rest of this discussion for we have to set a date, but for like 2 weeks until we can have a board workshop where we will receive the iReady data for the last 2 years and make a decision. We'll have a board workshop, make it, and then we'd go into a special meeting where we vote on the curriculum after we have the data that she's been talking about
we
and
could-
potentially a little bit of time.
We could separate the
Yeah,
iReady
so Jefferson last
diagnostic
night,
from,
yeah,
from the board.
so, because I think that my sense of, I think that, like you said, it's important. We have 2 years. It does take 2 or 3 days every 3 times a year, but it's manageable and it helps the AOS. It helps us track our kids with NUIAs all over the place. It helps us. But I think it's hard to talk about the data without seeing, like, talk about how this has worked without actually seeing the 2 years worth of data for our kids. So that's a very, I probably could not have written all that down, because
did.
but the gist is.
I did, you
iReady-
said Southbridge School would like to continue with iDiagnostic, which is iReady, but that's okay. Tool, you'd like to table the rest for 2 weeks, have a board workshop to see the data from the last 2 years, and then have a special meeting to vote on the Ready classroom separately.
And board workshops are something that we've just started having. They are public. No business gets done. So it's like we did one for the long range plan. So it's just, how are we gonna, what are some of the ways we're gonna think about doing this long range plan? This will be, what's the data? What are some of the other questions that we have, public has? And then the idea, we don't want to drag this out. So the idea of actually, anyone want to second my motion?
Yeah, I'll second the
Okay.
motion.
Jonathan will second it. Discussion. So then the idea would be, we'd have the board workshop and have the data maybe before, so we can think about these things, and then have a special meeting. So right after that, we would vote. So by the end of the month, depending on people's schedules, we would have a plan.
I'm still unclear on how the diagnostic tool is separate from the book. And how the book can be different than the diagnostic tool.
The
Can you speak to
diagnostic,
that?
sure, the diagnostic tools, it's an online assessment
Mhm,
that the students take individually, not unlike like NUIA.
mhm.
Okay, but it's shorter, a little less painful than maybe NUIA. And that diagnostic tool tells you exactly where that individual is and what they need next. And it gives them a score, and it tells you if they're like, are they at grade level? Are they early in that grade level, mid-grade level, late grade level, next grade level? And that's what you have. You have that for fall, winter, and spring for the last 2 years. And what I can do is scramble that up by grade level, so you can't see who's who, because this is a small school. And I'll take all the names off, so you're just looking at scores. And I can pull some classroom ones too, from the dashboard, so that you can see where they were. And we can look at diagonally where that same class was the following year, and that sort of thing. So we can take a look at the last couple of years and see what's happened.
Did NUIA start to be new in the fall or in the spring? Or do we have any comparable NUIA
Spring.
data? So we still have fall
have
and
the
winter
fall.
NUIA to compare. So that
Mhm.
wasn't on the chart that we got, but we could pull 2 sets of data from our NUIAs to show.
We can probably go
both
back
directions.
further than that if you're just gonna go fall to fall.
Yeah, I mean, we could go back to long.
Yeah, quite a long time.
No, yeah,
Mhm.
that's what's
Well, for that.
been nice about NUIA. Up until then.
It was, it
It
wasn't.
was, I know, but as you said, you.
It was
gave me
just
some
3 years,
confidence.
actually,
You gave me
that
some
was the
confidence
same.
that it's not gonna be all,
Yeah, but we do have that RIT score.
yeah.
So I think the RIT score is going to be this sort of the saving grace of where we are right now.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that's comparable to that 3 years worth of data.
Which has, how accurate do we consider this,
So, actually, I think that.
would that be
if-
for
if-
your
that this-
meeting?
This is, I mean, it's a way to get other people's input and to ask questions.
Okay,
so I
that
think
would be
that's-
just something
yeah,
I'd like you to
yeah.
look at, is how
I just
accurate.
send me an email.
Yeah,
and
I've
we'll
seen
cover it.
kids take
Yeah.
it and
Oh, I know,
it's,
I know.
it's all
Yeah.
multiple choice.
Yep. So more discussion on the motion.
If we kept iReady diagnostics, but not ready classroom, aren't we still looking for a new curriculum?
Mhm.
Or we're looking,
And does it make sense to keep iReady diagnostics if we're using a different curriculum?
Some schools use it without using that same curriculum. That we have, one of the schools uses that K-8 for their diagnostic, but they use Bridges K4 and then iReady in middle school.
And all
So
five
it does,
teachers that we
just gives you a
surveyed-
data point and you can identify like which kids need intervention and make sure they get it. In the same way that you use the NUIA scores or IXL scores, or any of those.
and I think there was variation in those responses from our teacher.
There certainly was,
So,
yeah.
I think that's another thing that we want a little bit more information.
Okay, I'm done with that.
More information is always good.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Did we get rid of that? Yeah.
Plan it for another meeting.
Yes, you did.
The sooner the better for me. The later you get in this month, the more difficult it is because I have my ESEA applications due July 1st. So those take me 2 weeks.
Next Tuesday. Anybody?
That works.
So we're just gonna hands on the books
During the
essentially.
day or at
questions, I
night.
And
Um, I'm afraid, I think to get public and to get us and Christian, it's gotta be,
Yeah, is Christian back then?
he will be back by then.
What's time next Tuesday?
What time? You want?
Well, not between 5 and 6,
Okay.
because I've got another meeting.
What, I'm sorry, what did you say, Jim?
Not between 5 and 6.
Next Tuesday, I've got a meeting.
No, I'd like it to be as early as possible, like Tuesday afternoon, maybe right after school. So maybe if there are some of the math teachers who would like to attend the workshop.
That's cool.
Is it 3:00?
3:30? Can you do that?
I can do 3. I can make that.
What about Christian? What do we know? You can- How is that with you, Tara?
Well, I'll just skip wellness.
I just got a talent show. Is that during the day or after school? On that day, that's all. That's on the
Okay.
calendar, but doesn't.
No, I did not look at that question. I looked at that. Do you know? Anybody?
It's not on my calendar.
Yeah, do you know if it's a?
May 16th. And.
Not, but not.
Before basketball.
The 13th. The 13th, 16th is boat launch and all sorts of things. 16th is graduating.
I'm thinking it's during the day.
It would either be during the day or at like 6, right? Isn't that like, yeah. Okay, well, tentatively, does the, what were we talking about, the 13th?
13, 15, or 3.
3:00 on the 13th?
Math workshop.
Okay. So I think we can encourage everybody, whether it's community members or school board members. This is a very short time frame, so we have to respect Tara's other workload, but think of questions. The information, if you can come with, is the 2-year comparison for iReady and NUIA comparisons.
Yep.
Okay.
I can do that.
Does that feel doable in a week? Yeah, I can't. Or, I mean, we have that data too.
What I
right?
do is shuffle. So
Well,
this
then
big
do-
thing
is-
ahead of
is it
you is
something
gonna
that we
go
can-
to the next day, and that's, I'm gonna prepare your presentation
You're
then.
gonna have the last day is gonna have way too much stuff to do.
It is,
Um,
but that's okay. It's
So I'm
Saturdays.
telling
are
my
great.
high schooler, actually.
Yeah, it's okay.
Preference for what you want. This room and want something bigger.
Whichever, either this one or the center, whichever, depending on what's going on for you guys. I mean, is that data accessible to check? Or I'll let you guys talk about that. I don't know.
Yeah, Zach and I, we'll talk
Yeah,
about
Okay,
how to do that. It's a spreadsheet, so you can pull it out. That's pretty easy. But we're gonna have to de-identify everything. That's the trick with, because you do have really small numbers. So if I give you specific kids in certain, some grade levels, they're identified already. Because the grade level is so small, so.
So, because we'll have that, but it's harder to do than when you break it down for noise. Do by grades for noise, grades. Grades for
Yeah,
noise.
we'll see. We'll figure it out. I'll find out what I can bring that won't identify students, and that's what I'll bring you.
Yeah.
So you can see, because you really don't want to see student by student. You
No,
want
we
to
don't.
see
We
like
want,
class
for
by
noise,
class,
so you
how
can
they
see that,
changed.
how it
Yep.
goes up,
Yep.
and, you know, like, yeah, in our school, like, we had a couple of kids that were homeschooled for math, and so it looked like this big jump. You know, 15% jump over 1 year, but 3 of those students had come back, and so it changed the numbers.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I do think it would also be beneficial for you to hear from, well, you saw some of the surveys, I didn't give you the comments, but to hear from teachers that
Oh, yeah.
that teach other grade levels as well. But I really think we should limit it to conversations of people that teach math.
Yeah.
And use the program. That would be, that would keep it efficient.
Well,
Otherwise, I
but
really
if-
can't do it in an hour and get to an AOS board next.
If we have teachers at the school who don't use the program.
They're welcome to attend, but I don't think we're looking for input from them. You're not gonna ask.
If they're able, okay, we'll talk about this at the. If they're
Yeah.
able to show improvement with what they're doing, then do we want to upset the apple cart of changing what they're doing if they're not using Ready Classroom with Fidelity? Then the data doesn't tell the right story if we don't know who's using it with Fidelity and who's not. Right.
But they can give us the why.
What?
But they can give us the why they're not using it, why they are using it.
If we hear from other voices, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that, because
Yeah.
again, it's not an evaluation, and
No,
I'm
it's
not
really
willing
not.
to identify personnel.
No.
And say this person is, this person's not. That wouldn't be fair. That the data that I collected was, taken with the promise that I wouldn't link people to their comments.
No, I'm not asking that. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the data of student achievement.
Yeah, again, but we can think about that. I'll bring whatever I can show you that might help you. And you can ask questions then of me and the teachers that use it. And I think that would be helpful.
All right, what's next?
We're on teacher nominations.
No, we did that already. Oh,
No.
No, we haven't done the principals report. We haven't done the.
Oh.
That's right, everything's basically on
Yes,
over. Yeah, all right. Chuck,
That's
you're
right, we changed the
All
order.
right, Dr. Amshaw. I have, sometimes I put these reports together. Some of them are just particularly upbeat, positive, because the monthly thing is really useful. And I shared it with the staff, which I don't always do, bore them with it, but we do so much stuff, and what I do is a circle through, and I'm gonna get the highlights so we can blast through it pretty quick, because everybody on the staff has seen it, you guys have seen it, a few people here haven't. I started by saying in the last couple of weeks of the school year, we're doing an artist in residence with the typical stuff, the great lineup featuring on-site planetarium, all school drumming, a Rapunzel performance on Monday in Brunswick, martial arts, there's mural painting, it goes to Frogtown Puppy Show. We're still squeezing in Pemmican Beach Day, boat launch, graduation, but all that's still after this week. It's the last week and a half of school. This month alone, Don Carrigan coming from 207, and he's visited the boat shop already. He's gonna join us at the boat launch, and he's gonna feature this school. It's slowly becoming famous for its boat shop. It has been over the last 27 years. So that's really cool. And I have Don Carrigan in my cell phone, I'm just saying. So that's good. The boosters organized Saturday campus cleanup and cookout a few weeks ago. That was like some old school community coming together stuff. 50 people, half of them were kids, half of them were adults. We had a great time, and rubbed elbows while we beat back all these bushes and pulled weeds and planted. The booster club they're really very active and coming to the forefront and making some things happen. We hosted the end of the concert and art show, which went extremely well. Jordan here, she'd like to give her a shout out because the jump rope club is still going tomorrow somewhere. I mean, just cranking on all cylinders there. Parent teacher conferences went well. Emergency planning committee has been meeting, and we had a successful lockdown drill recently, and today completing the evacuation drill. We evacuated to an undisclosed position place and came back here in less than 12 minutes. Police force was here to witness. We consulted afterwards. They were very happy with what they saw. We had a walkthrough with Homeland Security a couple weeks ago. Again, they were like the gentleman, I can't remember his name. I can't give him credit. I don't remember his name, business cards from my desk. But many times he's raising his eyebrows saying, oh, that's good. That's good. Oh, I like that. Like here now, a lot of schools aren't doing that. So we're really focused on some of that stuff, which has been a driving push from Lindsay and from myself. The staff are very happy about that. Great Maine book tournament under the guidance of Mrs. Wright and Mrs. Mower. Really outdid themselves in one states. Our enrollment looks like it's projected to go up a few students, which is really nice. Tier 3 news is that all schools initially identified a few years ago are not not eligible to apply to get off it right now. Again, late fall is what they're saying, which is unusual because it's not the end of the year. So that's not right. What is it for?
You could have gotten off, but you had to have made progress in all of the groups,
Yep.
all of the
And we didn't
subgroups.
apply- we
You
didn't-
had one subgroup that
Yeah, we
didn't.
didn't apply anyway, so I imagine we're gonna go through this year, through next school year with it. We're really utilizing the funds. We're really like figuring it out now and really for our advantage. So it's, so I like that. Tom Fence did great work down below. Everybody's really happy with that. The roofing materials are gonna be dropped off July 5th, so you'll see a tractor trailer drop off, and then a week or two after that, they'll commence. Summer school's organized, and roofing companies really aware of our schedule and what our expectations are, so that's lined up. Very happy with that. There's a lot of pieces that have come together since the last meeting. The PFAS, we would have been approved for the grant if Noble Bar, for instance, got approved for the grant, but they don't have a confined space. There's a term for it. You might know off the top of your head with the gases. We have to lift that whole system out. We need a shed. So those complications and additions kind of made like, the person approving the grant say, we're gonna hold off on that one. I gotta get to all these. Chuck Appleby, I talked to him. He called me the other day. He's been good about getting in touch with me. And he assures us still September 1st. That's what I'm hot on him. I said, all these details are great, Chuck, but are we gonna have September 1st? And he said, yes. He's really looking to speed it up by using the local contractors that we use. Even though it's gonna go through some of the bidding process, he's asked us to put together a list of people that we typically use, which is great, which is what we all want. So that's going well. And lastly, we've all talked about here about having the board and staff together for either a luncheon or a potluck or something that's been done in the past. With new board members, we kind of waited. So we would like to invite all of the board and essential office leaders to join us for breakfast on June 23rd at 8 a.m. here in the center. And that closes that. Respectfully submitted. Principal Chuck Hand. Any questions? That was rapid. That was fastest I've ever done. Good stuff happening in this school. It's a pleasure. And, an honor to be a principal. Really something.
Do you have anything? Okay.
This is from Lindsay. So this time of year, the central office is reflecting on school year 2022-23 together, and we're planning for the next year and our summer program. The business office is busy looking at end of the year reports. We're very excited to celebrate the 8th grade students and their accomplishments soon. And tonight, Superintendent Johnson is celebrating the adult ed graduation. We have 7 students graduating this year, which is really exciting. That is her report.
I'll just add to that, I think we have a couple of South Bristol kids that are in the program. I don't know if they're graduating, but some kids that have not finished Lincoln that have found their way back and are having success in that program. As well as I think with South Bristol School Board, we'd also like to extend happy retirement and thank you for all your hard work to Pam Sperry. Yeah. All right. Business. I'm sure there's stuff, but I think we can cover a lot. New business, not pilot program, already made a motion and a vote on that. Teacher nominations. I'll make a motion to approve the first probationary contract for Crystal Reddy Nurse and Caitlin. How do you say her last name? McCullough. For a point for music as recommended for the superintendent. I'll take a second on that and then maybe we can hear a little bit about, Sandy with a second. Not that we need this to vote, but can you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah,
the
I'm
music?
just gonna, we've interviewed her, I'm sorry, just pull up a file, so
Yeah.
make sure that you get the right place. Jennifer Rivera and I, the principal at Bristol, with the admins, we meet twice a month. We started putting our heads together, trying to kind of capture people, share them amongst schools for longevity and some job security and consistency. And so we put it out trying to see who we got, and then kind of mesh together a schedule. And this woman came along with I thought especially she could do K-8 everything, and really have an opportunity to develop a program here and be at Bristol. So here for 2 days, be at Bristol 3 days, and I think it's someone who we could have for decades. And that's what my hope is, someone that can develop a program from the ground. Their passion was obvious, and it was unanimous amongst the joint committees that came together to interview. We ought to be hiring this woman. She's a band course teacher, predominantly in middle school in the background, but she's just graduating. And let's see, University of Maine. She taught at Reedsburg Middle School. And she has glowing recommendations and checks out in every way imaginable, and we're very, very optimistic in that. How old is she, Chuck? I don't know.
That's
Can she
house and you
can she find housing?
All right, all those in favor?
I can't vote, I must abstain.
Oh, can you vote
Well,
on part
half of it.
or not?
I can vote on.
All those in favor for probationary contract for nurse, I amend my motion to have it just be about Crystal. All those in favor? That's 3, 1 abstention. All those in favor of Caitlin McCullough? That's 4. All right, policy. First read of this IJJ next month. Or in August. And I'm gonna add this work policy again, because I think it's whether we actually change the meat of it or not, it's cumbersome and hard to read. And I think versions might have gotten mixed up, and I think it might have been my fault. So I think we can just clean it up, even if we don't change the meat of it. But Chuck, if you can think about how it's working for you too, if you have any, and Katie, if you have any.
You know what that is off the top of my head.
Self-respect policy. I don't think it has a number, actually. It's just the sports policy. It is part of the Family Guide, Any other policy, anything that you can think of? Anything coming from superintendent or principal? No. Okay. Finance. I didn't realize that Peter's not here, although I should have realized that. I knew he was here for the finance meeting. I kind of made a wrong assumption about that. Okay. So I think status report means the status of what we are doing now, right? At the finance meeting, the only thing that he really drew attention to was that we will have some carryover from our regular ed line. We're fixing it on it right now, but I think there was about 42 to 45 from the secondary education line, along with around 28 or so from our contingency, because we did not need to use the contingency. The reduction in the regular ed tuition to Lincoln is because we have continued, and I think we're actually there now, but it's work that needs to be done every year. We've wheedled out who lives with which parent and which town they reside in. And we're talking to the finance committee about how we need to have a way to keep that moving forward, because We had one kid who we paid for all 4 years, 100%. One of his parents never lived in town, so I don't know why we did that. We found that mistake, got it changed his senior year. Sister goes to Lincoln and we're back at 100% and nothing's changed at all. So I think we've had some people move out of town too. So like, I think that's why that number is so big. And then we didn't have high schoolers move in, so the contingency wasn't used. We've since cut the contingency in half. Because not only do we just need one contingency, but we do have some money from the kids that don't pay full tuition at Lincoln when they go to Bath Tech. So we've kind of still kept that buffer in case we need it, but we have decreased it from where it was last year when we did this kind of budget. Were there any other things that you remember him?
Just on the boosters with that.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other,
discretionary
yeah.
thing, but we're gonna
Yep.
talk about that the next meeting.
Yeah, so like the budget itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, be fine.
Yep, and we don't have any donations this month.
Nope.
And what Jim was talking about is what we started talking about last month with figuring out the boosters isn't just a discretionary fund, really nailing that down. We asked a couple of questions of Fred Bureau when he was here, and they're in the process of doing some audits at central office. So I think he might get some advice from Fred as well as to how we can group our student activities funds, because those are not run through central office, so those are run through here with a check and balance of Katie and Chuck looking at those, but they do need to be cleaned up. So he was going to look for some suggestions from Fred and potentially another school to see how we can do it, because it's gotten a little better, but it's still needs some more. So that would probably be August, potentially September, just because our meeting falls at the beginning of August. It might not have been nailed down by the beginning of the month. But we need to put that under future board topics and just keep it on our running list of things to discuss. Yeah. Let's see if keeps getting on. Burns Fund 24 application approval. Did folks have time to look at that? Come up with any questions? We've had a lot to think about the last couple of days, so, and I think that there's still some tweaks potentially in the stipends. So last year we did table it till August, since we didn't so early in August. I think we can still table and ask for clarity on any questions we might have, and then vote in August, and then just mail it right off. They're great about looking at us on a different cycle. They look at us a little bit earlier so that we can get the money for the beginning of the school year.
I'm okay with that.
Is that okay? You okay with that? One thing that I don't think I mentioned when you were in the room was that in the past, Burns has paid for the first student bill for the 8th and 9th graders going to Bath Tech for the summer bridge program. So I don't know if we can look at what we paid last year or if there's a new quote from Angela for that. But we should put that in our encumbrances as well. And we were given our chunk of Burns, and then we're given $5,000 on top of that as a donation that was run through Caring for Kids, which is the Bristol organization that takes care of food insecurities and winter boots and stuff like that. We have not had a high need for that money. We have different food banks and different people that work for us, so we have worked with us for that. So we have used some for snacks for classrooms, but we have not used most of it. I'd asked a couple of months ago if we could donate that money back, and the answer was yes. So Caring for Kids does have, I think, no bills, and they have money, even though that community is generous. So I think the thought would be to see Chuck what we've spent with that, and then if it's people agree, then we give that money back, because it was we had our self-bristol money, and then we had 5,000 on top of it, so it's not taking away from our kids, but they just don't have the need this year.
Right.
Do we need to vote on that?
I don't think we need to vote, but is that, I mean, if people have questions, or does that seem?
No,
like the
that's
right thing?
totally reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then we just have to, I think, maybe adjust that amount down for next year, because we still might have some needs, but
Maybe not.
not, yeah. And they're good to work with in general anyway, so if you had any for them, being in the search and people would get them that. There was, I think, some discussion on stipends for Burns that maybe Chuck and Katie and I can sit down and know about that a little bit more. Any other questions? All right, so we'll table that until August. Long range planning, Christians in the woods somewhere canoeing, so I think that we can maybe move that one along too. He took pictures, we had good turnout, we had, maybe 9 or 10 in the afternoon when we were there. And maybe 15 or 16.
Yeah, I don't remember what the count was, but something around that.
At least that one, maybe that.
Yeah,
I'm excited to hear his takeaways from that, because it was productive.
yeah, and it was, he took, pictures of all the data, so everything's there, we just haven't, he's been in the woods. Yeah. All right, I usually forget something by this point in the meeting. Have I forgotten anything? Okay, without objection, board chair declares this meeting adjourned at 7:25. Thank you, everybody, for coming.